Thousands rallied in the Uruguayan capital to protest against rape culture and violence against women. In Portugal, the Socialist Party won early legislative elections on Sunday, securing an outright majority in parliament. Sudanese anti-coup protesters returned to the streets on Sunday, where they were met with tear gas by security forces. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. Thousands of women mobilized in Uruguay against gender violence. From Montevideo, our correspondent Mateo Grille has the story.
Male chauvinist violence continues, and so does the response in the streets. Various feminist collectives, including the Intersocial Feminist Association and other activists, march in Montevideo and different departments of the country against rape culture.
The clear and strong message is to be against rape culture. When we say rape culture, what we are talking about is that society endorses rape culture because when I am with a guy and I tell him yes, but I don't know, no is no. That is part of rape culture. Educating girls not to wear short skirts, as a journalist said, so they don't get raped, instead of educating boys to understand consent. That is rape culture. Rape culture is the pact of silence among men.
The mobilization arose in response to a horrendous gang rape of a woman in Montevideo, which is now being investigated by the justice system. The demonstrators demanded to be heard.
This is a question born from the pain, from the rage, that we have to experience this kind of situation. And two issues. One that shut off all of us, but also this feeling that it could have happened to you and that is something that I think occurred to all of us. The another time, and a girl who said, I am alive despite getting wasted. And when you see that young girls are saying, I am alive despite getting drunk, it shows you that we have a serious problem as a society and that we have to find a way to be heard and to be understood, that these are not isolated situations.
Participants denounced that rape culture is deep-rooted and naturalized as a practice of abuse of power, of war, of colonization, and that is still silenced under the most perverse mechanisms. Demonstrators denounced the acts of sexual violence against women are not isolated events, but part of the patriarchal system.
They are not isolated cases, but are part of a patriarchy, a structural problem, a systematic situation that we have to abolish.
The thousands of women who participated in the demonstration demanded a real commitment from the government, the allocation of resources and the development of strong public policies to protect all citizens, including women, dissidents, children and adolescents.
Mateo Grille, TeleSUR, Montevideo, Uruguay.
Thank you, Mateo, for the story. And now we continue, because back in 1978, Brazil's ABC Metal Workers Union, led by Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, was a key player in the fall of the military dictatorship. This Sunday, the former president meets the recently elected leader of the union. Our correspondent, Brian Meir, has the report.
After years of violent repression of labor unions during Brazil's U.S.-backed military dictatorship, in 1978, the ABC Metal Workers Union, led by Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva, started a cycle of wildcat strikes which paralyzed the nation, united the working class, and triggered the fall of the military government. On Saturday, the union welcomed its new president.
There was a labor law reform which removed the workers' rights. The workers have to fight so we can restore those rights. We have lots of challenges, but our union's main challenge is to fight so that we can be happy in the country that we live in.
Over the years, the union has remained an important protagonist in the struggle of the Brazilian working class. To this day, Lula still lives one block from its headquarters, and it was there in 2018 that, surrounded by tens of thousands of supporters, he turned himself in to the federal police due to political persecution that he has now been totally exonerated from.
Our union doesn't just act for the workers. We are a citizen union, so we join in society's fight for more health and education, because the current government dismantled all the social policies for youth, women and Afro-Brazilians. So we have a big fight ahead for restoring workers' rights.
Joined by National Workers' Party President Gleisi Hoffmann, former President Lula participated in the event, congratulating the new union president and giving a speech about the history of the union and the challenges that lie ahead.
We didn't have a schedule to go to the factory door. We were simply there the whole time. And our labor sector became a subject in history. It inflamed the political struggle in this country. We inflamed the return to democracy in Brazil.
Thank you, Brian, for this report. And the winners of the 63rd edition of the Casa de las Americas Awards were announced in Havana, marking the end of a week of activities in the Cuban capital, with the participation of important intellectuals and writers from across the region. Our correspondent, Lisandra Andres, brings us the details.
Las Americas has become the capital of Latin American literature again this January, after a year of being held back due to the pandemic. Its literary award returns in its 63rd edition.
It is a major quest. Many people eagerly await the awards, due to everything that this prize entails and brings with it, and the books that have come to light thanks to this important prize, and the juries. Here, there have been writers who came during a period at the beginning of the awards who have gone on to win Nobel Prizes.
More than 1,600 works competed in 3 genres. Spain's José Antonio Bequeras won the prize for the best historical social essay, Argentina's Javier Núñez won the prize for the best novel, and Cuba's Luis Lorente, who received the award for the second time, won the prize for best poetry.
You only have to look at the history and see a catalogue of books and authors awarded by the Casa de las Americas, including non-awarded books that have also been published, because there are many good books published by the Casa that are not prize winners, and the role of the Casa de las Americas in the history of Latin American literature is essential.
During the week, as part of the activities of the awards, important figures of regional literature visited the Casa to be part of the jury of the contest and to advocate the reading of poetry, one of the most popular genres of this contest.
The dissemination of the cultural work of the Casa de las Americas, and in particular the creation of the prize, helped to bring together in Cuba texts and authors from all over the continent, and also Spain, and secured the recognition of authors who until then were anonymous, invisible, but who were of very high quality. And thanks to the prize, they were launched onto the stage. The Casa and the prize were very useful in the emergence of the famous boom of Latin American literature in the 60s.
And in the year of the centenary of the Argentine maestro León Ferrari, the Casa's gallery pays tribute to one of the essential figures of Latin American art. War, violence, sex, religion, or the different forms of intolerance, everything for Ferrari was questionable and had to be a fundamental part of the struggles of the time, a constant critique, to which writers from Latin America and the Caribbean also added their voices.
A principle of this prize, since it was founded in 1960, has been to award literary quality. In that quality is included the capacity for inquiry, questioning, analysis. That is, this award has never sought cheap political propaganda, all that would have been terrible for the prestige of the prize. I believe that the fact that this award continues to have so many participants is due to the fact that it has never really made concessions in that sense.
Since its creation, the Casa has been a center for the dissemination, study, and gathering of Latin American art and literature. It has been described by many as a new form of struggle against the segmentation and fragmentation of our culture, which has always been promoted by imperialism.
Lisandra Andrés, TeleSUR, La Habana, Cuba.
Thank you, Lisandra, and we'll be right back after this very short break, so don't go away. Welcome back to From the South. Portugal's Socialist Party won early legislative elections on Sunday, securing an outright majority in parliament. Prime Minister Antonio Costa, the leader of the Socialist Party, said in his victory speech that they will rule the country for the next 4 years with 117 deputies in the 230-seat parliament. Turnout reached 57%, despite nearly 1 million people, equivalent to 10% of the country's population, being in home quarantine due to COVID-19. The number of the left bloc's deputies decreased from 19 to 4, and those in the Communist Party and Greens Alliance Unitarian Democratic Coalition from 12 to 5. Meanwhile, Rui Rio, the former mayor of Porto, who has been leading the Social Democratic Party, announced that he will be resigned after the party secured an absolute majority.
Para os próximos 4 anos.
Socialist Party government for the next 4 years. An absolute majority doesn't mean absolute power. It doesn't mean to govern alone. It's an increased responsibility. It is governing with and for all Portuguese people. The Portuguese have pulled out a red card to say no to political crisis. The Portuguese have shown their desire to count on stability, certainty, and security in the coming years, a direction for our country.
And with tensions rising between the United States and Russia over Ukraine, Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said on Sunday that his country wants relations based on mutual respect and warned that NATO is seeking to drag Ukraine into a conflict.
We want good, mutually respectful and equal relations with the United States, as well as with any other country in the world. Each time it turns out that their defense line continues to move eastward. Now it has come close to Ukraine. They also want to drag this country there, although it is clear to everyone that Ukraine is not ready and will not make any contribution to strengthening NATO's security.
In Northern Ireland, relatives of those killed on what is known as Bloody Sunday have been remembering their loved ones on the 50th anniversary of the massacre by British soldiers. Floral wreaths were laid at a monument dedicated to the 13 people who lost their lives in 1972, when British soldiers opened fire following a civil rights march in the city of Derry in one of the deadliest days in the Irish struggle against British colonialism. The British government finally apologized for the massacre in 2010 after an official inquiry found that the soldiers fired without justification on unarmed, fleeing civilians and then lied about it for decades. Now we address other topics. Russia is seeing a surge in COVID-19 cases with an 8-fold increase compared with the beginning of the month. The surge is driven by the highly contagious Omicron variant. The state coronavirus task force reported over 121,000 new infections in a single day, representing an all-time high and 8,000 more than the previous day. Almost half of Russia's population is fully vaccinated, despite being the first country in the world to approve and roll out a domestically developed coronavirus vaccine, and authorities are working to tackle vaccine hesitancy. In Vietnam, people are making their preparations for the Lunar New Year amid warnings of caution due to COVID-19. The Lunar New Year of the Tiger is a festival called Tet in Vietnam. During the celebrations, which fall on February 1st this year, the streets are lined with shops selling decorative items in red and gold, the colors considered to bring good luck and prosperity. There are, however, less visitors than normal these years, as authorities have issued a warning against large gatherings and asked the people to practice virus safety measures. The government has also cancelled scheduled fireworks shows and other festive events to minimize the risk of spread of the virus.
Everyone has been suffering from the pandemic this year. Many people have lost their jobs. Children attend classes from home. I hope the situation will be better in the new year when children can go to school, people have jobs, and the economy will be stable.
I hope that the pandemic will be over and everything will go back to normal, so everyone will have a better year.
And we have more stories coming up after this final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. Sudanese anti-coup protesters returned to the streets on Sunday, where they were met with tear gas by security forces. In the capital Khartoum, thousands continued their protests for civilian rule and against last year's military takeover. Pro-democracy activists have called for mobilizations demanding a restoration of the transition to civilian rule, following the October 25th military coup led by General Abdel Fattah al-Burhan. At least 78 people have been reported killed and hundreds wounded in the crackdown on protesters since October, according to an independent group of medics, while authorities have also rounded up hundreds of pro-democracy activists. And Peru saw demonstrations against Spanish energy company Repsol after a major oil spill from one of its refineries in the country sparked an ecological disaster. Authorities are investigating Repsol following the oil spill on January 15th, which was blamed on surging waves caused by the eruption of an underwater volcano near Tonga. Last week, President Pedro Castillo declared an environmental emergency and vowed to ensure the Spanish firm took responsibility for the disaster. Prosecutors also opened an investigation into the crime of environmental contamination. 21 beaches on Peru's Pacific coast were contaminated by the spill of over 11,000 barrels of crude, a figure based on estimates and much larger than the initial figure offered by the company.
So far, it has been 2 weeks since the oil spill and there is no one to blame yet. There should be someone detained right now.
The media is saying that the spill is still going on. No more. Poor animals, poor our fauna. The fish, we're supporting the municipalities by donating hair to clean these beaches.
And the oil spill off the central coast of Peru 2 weeks ago has had a major impact on local wildlife. Many seabirds nesting on islands in nearby nature reserve are either starving to death or dying from poisoning due to the contamination, as experts warn that the extent of the ecological disaster is yet to be determined.
Today we found a bird that was floating in the sea. We were able to get it on this boat, but after a few minutes it died. This is something that happens because the birds are already intoxicated and are only floating in the sea, but they no longer have the strength to swim, to hunt, to fly. In most cases, when we find dead birds, we find that the beak is full of black oil. Apparently the feathers may be cleaner. They may not be stained, but inside the beak, it can even be affecting the digestive system, the liver. The impact is visible, not to mention that analyses are still pending at the level of fish or macroinvertebrates that are also part of the ecosystem.
Favorable wind and sea conditions have kept an oil slick away from beaches in eastern Thailand. Some 20 to 50 tons of oil was estimated to have leaked on Tuesday night in the Gulf of Thailand from an undersea hose that an offshore mooring point of the Star Petroleum refining company used to load tankers. Emergency workers in protective clothing have been working to remove sand contaminated by oil on Mae Rampian Beach in Rayong province, while fears that more areas could be affected have been allayed by the favorable weather conditions. The Environment Minister has expressed confidence in the authorities' capacity to prevent the majority of the spill from ruining local natural areas. And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find these and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and Telegram. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.